All right, all right, all right. How you all doing tonight? How you all doing tonight? It is good to see you all. And once again, and we've got some things to talk about. I got a subject to talk about that I think is pretty interesting that I've been studying as I've been treating my clients and just learning about some of the things that move us. Some of the things that make us feel good, some of the things that are common when we don't feel so good or when we feel lonely. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about how to avoid feelings of loneliness. And, if you have had, the question I guess to ask is, have any of you all been feeling lonely lately? If you have, that's okay because you're not alone. As a matter of fact, according to one of the recent Gallup polls that I was looking at, 20% of Americans report feeling lonely. And this has been on an uptick. It's been somewhat on an uptick since COVID. And so the question is what really causes this feeling of loneliness? What's going on in our environment that causes us to feel lonely at times, right? Sometimes we don't like to identify it or label it that way, but sometimes we know we need a little bit more social something in our lives. Sometimes we know that we would like to have more friends or people who it just seems like we could better identify with. I often hear with some of the women that I counsel talk about like it would just be really cool to have a girls trip, like kind of what I see on television, to where we just go maybe to some exotic island or just go out to lunch, maybe outside of the state or the city. We travel somewhere and do something fun together, and there's no drama. We're just all good and everybody is loving and accepting. Well, this is something that is significant because loneliness is, believe it or not, is associated with poor life satisfaction. Poor life satisfaction is also associated with isolation, depression, bad health, and even death and mortality, right? And so what is it that we need to do to undo potential situations where we might be lonely? Um, well, we're going to talk a little bit about that. So there are about three things that we can identify that might make someone have feelings of loneliness. And when you find out about this, it's really coincidental or not coincidental. It's not a predictable things that you might just think that bring about loneliness, some of these answers. But it's very compelling because apparently there is some level of association. Let's get to it. What predicts loneliness? Well, here's one. One question that we would need to ask you is, do you like what you do every day? Do you like what you do every day? Just whatever you're doing every day, do you like what you do every day? That's the question. And let me tell you, if the answer to that is no, then what is it? It reduces the odds of being lonely. Or I mean, if the answer is yes, then it reduces the odds of you being lonely by 75% if you like what you're doing every day, just enjoying what you're doing. That change in itself. And the question sometimes might be asked is, what in the world does that have to do with anything about me being lonely? But many times there is an association if you really think about it. Like if I don't like what I'm doing every day, let's just say it's work or my job, my occupation, um, or just even not being at work, being unemployed, whatever it is that's going on. If I'm not liking what's going on with what I'm doing every day, then let's just say when I get off of work and things like that, when my job ends, like you might think at first glance that, hey, well, I probably would go want to go and do something fun. Because the day has just been so dragged out, so terrible, things like that. But you know what? The reality is a lot of times we really don't want to do anything after we've had a bad day, after we've just dealt with people that just don't seem like they like your work, they're complaining, customers yelling at you, Whatever it is, that makes the job or the situation during the day unpalatable. We, at the end of the day, we are not only emotionally drained, but we're physically drained. So in scenarios like this, we're probably less likely to reach out to somebody after the day is done. We might want to just get something to eat, turn on the television, go to sleep, relax, or whatever it may be, because the day has been so challenging. So that's number one. Do you like what you do every day? Number two, your friends and family give you positive energy every day. They're on this everyday thing. Do your friends and family give you positive energy every day? Well, if you're in an environment, in a home situation where your family or your friends are not giving you positive energy is something that we need for our survival, right? When we don't have that, it's like we start to perish. We start to just feel bad inside. So that's very important. Maybe you're not having a very functional relationship with your spouse. Maybe it's something that's going on with your kids. It's time for them to move out. Maybe it's some things like that going on and it's time to make some changes. All right. So that's number two. All right. And lastly, in the last 7 days, ask yourself, in the last 7 days, have you felt active and productive every day? Just the last seven. Have you felt active and productive? Wow. If you have not felt active and productive, this can reduce, if your answer is yes, then this reduces the odds of loneliness by 75%. If your answer is no, then then we have some problems here, right? That we got to look at solving. We can't find resolution, right? Um, One thing I'd like to mention on the part of your friends and family giving you positive energy. Well, maybe I'll just save it. I hope I don't forget it. Let me write this down. Positive energy from friends. Okay. We don't want to forget that. I'll still write it down and forget it. But those are the three. So if we're having some problems in these areas, loneliness is not just about strictly social. It's about other things that's going on in life as well. Things that we might not predict that have something to do with how we feel on a day-to-day basis. So if we can improve in these areas, if you're getting, with the therapist, or if you're getting some type of coaching or something like that, whoever is working with you should have this in mind, should be implementing this, should be asking you questions about what's going on in your day to day. How are we doing as far as our support system with family, friends, loved ones, spouse, children? These are things that I always cover, and my crew, we always cover as well. And then in the last 7 days, have you felt active and productive? So the thing is, if you don't feel this way, there are some things that you might want to look at that you can change to start kind of making progressions. If you decide that, hey, I want to just do this on my own, I think I can make the changes. Choi, what do I need to do? So here's a couple of tips. You want to find, if you don't like what you're doing during the day, let's just say it's your job, then find something else. It's like, well, you say that like that's easy. Well, it's not necessarily easy, but sometimes it hasn't necessarily been an option. A lot of times we get stuck in a routine, or we get stuck believing that the individuals that we work with, they would suffer and they're dependent on us, and that it would be a heavy loss if we left. It might be a heavy loss if you left, but the life of the business, the life of the individuals will continue. Just like when people are deceased, things just pick up, right? So sometimes you have to make a choice for yourself. Do I want to continue to experience loneliness? Because at first I may have thought it might have been a thing relative to my relationship, or relative to family and friends, and just the absence of intimate relationships there. But now I'm finding out that, you know what, I never thought of it. I'm really not happy with what goes on with me on a day-to-day basis. This may be something to consider. All right, let's move on. Get involved with something that you enjoy after work. After I get done with this, I'm heading to the bookstore. I might go to the gym and jump in the hot tub and relax and knock out a few things and just relax. You feel what I'm saying? Do something that is comfortable for you, that you can look forward to. Sometimes that you can do in isolation. It's okay to want to get away from the family sometimes for a little bit. Come on back, right? Because you have to recharge. Some of us feel guilt about that, but we're not handling ourselves. Some of us have difficulty being in places where it's not a lot of stimulation because we're fighting negative thoughts that are ruminating in our mind. Stop avoiding these negative thoughts and go get some support to work those things out and get them changed into something positive so that you don't have to keep compensating, right? And so then we're flipping down to finding hobbies that make you feel good and that give you a sense of accomplishment. Okay. So that's something that you want to do. And maybe walk, take some walks, maybe read a book, maybe do something creative that makes you feel accomplished once you get that done. Yeah, my daughter right now, she's doing some crocheting, and I know a lot of people that do crocheting, something like that that makes you feel accomplished. Get involved with a group, an exercise group, a workout group, a yoga or something like that. Maybe, you know. So, so when it comes to friends and family, y'all, I wanted to say this. I was rushing to get to this one. So we're talking about in the survey, it said about positive energy from friends and family, right? And it's just so important. I was just talking to a client about this. It's so important to recognize that we have to stop choosing negative people to entertain us. We have to stop choosing negative, unhappy people to be in our relationships and our marriages and our friendships and things like that. Because here it is, you might have actually been kind of happy before you start getting around these people. But a lot of times, unhappy people are unhappy. So when you come in here with like my energy and my vibe is not good for a lot of people because I stay positive. That's just the type of vibe that I'm on. And I might not be good for some people, but that's okay because you go where you need to go. I'll go where I need to go. And as long as we're both feeling good, then that's okay. You feel what I'm saying? You have to be okay with that with yourself, that everybody's not going to feel your vibe. And when you're around people that have constantly have negative things to kind of undercut you with, it's always negative. You can't ever do anything right. Oh, why you smiling so much, girl? Why you wear that? Why don't you do it this way? Just never anything positive to say. Or you in a relationship and your man is telling you, well, things wouldn't be this way if you would give me this, or if you would do this more, if you everything's about when you address the concerns with them, what you need to do. Sometimes you've got to just pull back emotionally and recognize that sometimes I'm being emotionally dependent on unhappy people, expecting that I'm going to be happy. And sometimes we have the idea that we can fix people into being happy. You knew that they weren't happy when you met them, when you were in relationship with them, when you began the journey with this friend, companion, or spouse. You knew they weren't happy to begin with, and you felt that it's up to you to change that, and it's not, because how happy are you? Because what the stats are saying, if I'm around unhappy people, it's probably affecting, impacting me, and maybe this is the reason why I might be feeling and experiencing loneliness. So sometimes I'll go back to my notes now. Sometimes we need to make time in the week to connect with friends. So sometimes we need to reach out, do those video chats, do some in-person visits, get outside of isolation because that's connected with depression and things like that, and share with them what's on your mind. And sometimes this is a good one. Sometimes it's good to focus on building a smaller circle of friends that are strong, supportive connections. A smaller circle. So you may have a circle of one or two, because all the rest of the people that I've been surrounding myself with are people that have been feeding me negative energy. And a lot of times we have been enmeshed in negative energy our whole lives because that's what we grew up around and that's what we surrounded ourselves with. And it's like a nostalgic type of feeling. So sometimes I just want you to just examine and check your environment and start checking off and thinking, like, how positive are the people that I'm in environment with? Okay. And maybe this is why it's impacting and affecting my mood. It may be time to start narrowing my circle of friends so I can make room for others more. That's going to bring strong, positive energy. And then lastly, just getting productive in the physical activity. I think I mentioned that incorporating exercises, set small, achievable goals, and do something that you enjoy and take time to something that you will enjoy that's fulfilling. It's okay. Try it. Your body will appreciate it over time. For some of us, it's going to be a little bit awkward initially because we're not used to. Like I just talked to a client recently, and it's like, well, I don't even know what that is, what that will look like. Well, some of us need time to process to try to even find out what it is that we enjoy, what's going to be fulfilling for us, and understanding how to overcome the fear of stepping a little bit away from being concerned about everybody else's needs and taking a little bit of a moment to check mine out. Okay. See what it is that I like. Well, that's it. If you're needing help with that, put coach in the chat. We'll get somebody from our team to connect with you. We'll get you started on a new path. We're seeing life changing things happening. And I love it. It's just amazing seeing people make that switch that come in with a lot of depression, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, and we're making that change, that switch with just a few simple hacks. Let us know, put coach in the chat, and we'll reach out to you. And until next time, we will see you. You all be blessed. All right. Bye-bye.